My name is Erin Irvin, and I will be leading the first portion of the training session today. I am a Senior Retirement Compliance Officer on the Employer Relations team here at Ibers. With me here today, I have Tina Bennett, who is also a Senior Retirement Compliance Officer. She will be helping me navigate while also jumping in periodically to add in information and help facilitate the questions and answers. As far as the outline for today's session goes, we will start by introducing you to our website. Then we will go over the Employer Handbook. We will not be going through the handbook in complete entirety, but we hope to hit on the most important topics that will affect most reporting officials, specifically in regards to this group. Now I'm going to hand you over to Tina so she can show you the website.
All right. As you can see, I'm sharing my screen with you, so you will not need to worry about navigating to these screens or the workbook on your own during the presentation. First, we will start by going over IPERS website, and that's what you're seeing here on your screen, www.ipers.org. Here you can access the Employer Handbook, our commonly used forms. These forms are in PDF format, so you can, when you access them, you'll be able to enter the information and print them out and sign them and then submit them to us via fax and or email. Also in the top right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see My Account login and Employer login. And this is where you can go. The My Account is for you as a member, and the Employer login is for you as the employer. All right. Now I'm going to show you where you can find the Employer Handbook. As you can see in the middle of our screen here, there's a section for our employers. It's underneath the large picture in the middle of the section on the right-hand side of the page. You click on here, it's going to open in another PDF visible. Of course, this is the most updated copy that we have. We recommend you using this version online rather than getting a hard copy, because our hard copies are only updated once a year, but this is updated as we make changes. A tip real quick for when you're trying to find something within our handbook, instead of scrolling and or looking through the table of contents, is clicking Control F. You'll see a little box appeared up here. I'm going to search a topic, independent. You'll see there's 2 of 19, and it's going to pull up every single time an independent contractor is referenced within the materials here. And you can scroll through and find where that is. I'm going to turn it back over to Erin, and she'll start going through the handbook here.
Okay. So we will start with section 1 on page 7. What is IPERS? This section expands a little bit more upon what David just went over in the video, but for even more in-depth information, make sure to take a look at the member handbook as well. The main purpose of IPERS is to provide a solid, dependable retirement plan for all public employees. This serves as a major benefit for the employer to attract and retain good employees. When IPERS was first established in 1953, it was meant to be a supplemental to Social Security. As the years have progressed and IPERS benefits have improved, Social Security is now supplemental to IPERS. IPERS also has disability and death benefits available. IPERS is a defined benefit plan under the Internal Revenue Code 401A, which is different from a defined contribution plan in respect to how benefits are calculated. A defined benefit plan is based on a formula, whereas a defined contribution plan is based on your investments. The formula for calculating IPERS benefits consist of your age at retirement, your benefit multiplier, which is based on your years of service. For each year, you get 2% towards your percentage multiplier, up to a maximum of 65% for regular employees and 72% for special service employees. And the last piece of the formula is your highest 3 or 5 year average salary. This is 5 years for regular employees and 3 for special service employees. On page 8, it lays out where to go for help. IPERS is currently in the process of revamping our website, so make sure to look for changes and improvements in the coming year. We hope that even more information will be made available to you to help you find the answers you are looking for. And also the training sessions being offered today and yesterday will be added to the website as well. If you cannot find what you were looking for, though, please feel free to contact the Employer Relations team at 877-473-7799 or send an email to employerrelations@ipers.org. And our team is available to help Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30.
All right, we're going to go ahead and start again. And so Erin's going to start with section 2 on the Employer Handbook. Yes. So that goes over reporting officials and their responsibilities. So the reporting official is our liaison between the employer and employees and IPERS. If you are not listed as the reporting official and should be, please complete the employer account demographics form. And Tina can show you real quick where to access this form. So on that main screen, the www.ipers.org, under the employer section, there's a spot here for forms. Click on forms. It brings you into all of our forms that are available to our employers. And the fourth one down you'll see here is employer account reporting official demographics. You click on the words, it opens the PDF form. They are fillable and you can complete them and submit them to the either email or fax it, or you can mail it to our office. If you email it or fax it, they'll get to us quicker and we can get your information as the reporting official updated. If you have any questions about that, just go ahead and submit any questions you have regarding the form or what you need to do in order to get that updated, or you need to be the contact. Go ahead and send that to employerrelations@ipers.org and we'll get those questions answered for you. And all IPERS employers have an ID associated with each account, and this number should always be the beginning of your employer login as well, followed by the first initial of your first name and the first 6 of your last name. So IPERS counts on the reporting official to report wages correctly, pay contributions, and maintain employee records. Additional duties of the reporting official may include preparation of the W-2s, maintaining documentation for leaves of absences, specifically unpaid forms of leave due to member potential to request service purchase for missed quarters. Members may receive free IPERS service credit for qualifying military service with departure from and return to IPERS covered employment or leaves qualifying for protection under FMLA. If this applies to one of your employees, please refer to page 11 and 12 for more information. Also, part of the reporting official duties is reporting a member deaths. And this can be done by contacting our benefits department via phone or online via our website. And Tina will jump over real quick to our website to show you where to do that. So here we are back at our website, and this is going to be located under the member section. So even though you're the employer contacting to us to report the member death, you're going to go under the member section and you're going to click on the words report a member death. You'll fill out this form. The red means that they're required, and then go ahead and get that submitted to us, and then we'll get their information updated on their account. Okay, and then back to the list of the reporting official duties is also maintaining accurate data for your employees, such as correct social security numbers, new addresses, employment history, or name changes. Please note, it is very important to report when an employee leaves employment. We ask that you update their employment record with the termination and last paid date when you are reporting their last paycheck via IQ. You can update this either through the wage import process or by manually updating the employment record. If you are unsure about how to do this, please stick around for the IQ portion of the training, as this will be demonstrated. One more thing I want to add real quick is that reporting officials are no longer required to hand out beneficiary forms upon hire. This can now be done under the My Account login. So once wages are reported to IPERS, this sets up the member's account. If they are new to IPERS, they will receive a welcome packet within 60 days of those wages being reported, containing their member ID and information on how to access the My Account login and how to add their beneficiaries.
Members must have a valid email on file with IPERS to access their online account. If they need to add their email or if they have ever previously been an IPERS member, you can refer them to our benefits team to get further information on their account. And that phone number is 1-800-622-3849. Okay, so and then there is a couple of pages at the end of section 2 there on 14 and 16 through 16 that goes over the different scenarios for what to do when for reporting officials.
Next, we're going to move on to section 3, which is IPERS membership. That is on page 17 of the employer handbook. IPERS has 2 types of employees, permanent employees and temporary employees. First, we're going to go into permanent employees. These employees are hired with the intent of working longer than 6 months. Regardless of how many hours they work per week, these employees can either be part-time or full-time, and you would start mandatory coverage from the date of hire. Temporary employees, of course, for IPERS purposes, such as seasonal, on-call, or PRN, they are hired with the intent of working less than 6 months. You can choose whether you want to cover temporary employees from the date of hire, or if you want them to qualify for IPERS coverage by earning that $1,000 in each of 2 consecutive quarters. Regardless of how your entity chooses to do it, it must be consistent with all employees of that same group. Again, to qualify for IPERS coverage as a temporary employee, you must earn $1,000 in each of 2 consecutive quarters, and then coverage would start the following quarter that you report wages for them. These individuals are covered until they have a break in service of 4 quarters or more and or terminate or resign. Volunteer firefighters and EMSs are also considered temporary employees specifically. Normally they're volunteer or they receive a per diem that is not enough for them to qualify. The fire chief may be considered a salaried employee and covered. Next, we'll move on to board and commission members. If any of your boards or commissions are appointed and or elected and paid a set salary, they are covered for IPERS. If they are appointed and paid per diem or voluntary, they are not covered or they would have optional coverage. And you're going to want to refer to page 19 for the options on that. Our part-time elected officials, they get to choose IPERS coverage or opt out of coverage using the election for termination of IPERS coverage form within 60 days of hire. The election for termination of IPERS coverage form is on our website. You can print it out as you need it and provide it to those individuals. IPERS has an agreement with Social Security called the 218 agreement, which allows our part-time elected officials to choose either Social Security or IPERS. They have to choose one or the other. It's permanent, and they cannot have both. There is some other optional coverage positions for city managers and city administrators performing the duties of city managers under Iowa Code Chapter 372 or 420. You will notice on page 20 there is a list of all positions eligible to opt out. Part-time and full-time police and firefighters, if they're in cities under 8,000, they would qualify for IPERS coverage. Anything over in cities over 8,000 would have 411 coverage and would not be covered for IPERS purposes. We have a full list of exclusions on page 22 of who's covered and who's not covered, such as high school students. A high school student in grades 12 or lower must graduate or have a GED in order to be covered for IPERS purposes. Once they graduate from high school, then the following quarter, you will sign them up for IPERS if their position is eligible. Reserve peace officers, they're excluded per Iowa Code 80B, and they cannot be covered for IPERS purposes. Normally, they're just paid a small fee, but they would not be covered for IPERS. And they do need, your police chief needs to report them to Iowa Law Enforcement Academy as a reserve. Resident doctors and interns are not covered. And of course, volunteers, normally they're not paid anything, so of course they're not IPERS covered. IPERS looks at wages, not volunteer and nothing, not being paid. And next is our independent contractors. Independent contractors are never covered for IPERS. If there's any question at all on whether or not someone should be considered an independent contractor, please reach out to us so IPERS can make this determination, or by having you complete the IPERS worker determination form. Any decision IPERS makes will be based upon IRS rules, taking into consideration the behavior, any financial, and the type of relationship between the individual and the employer. Some examples of items that we look for are whether the individual carries liability insurance, do they operate under a business name, do they have a federal tax ID number, FEIN, do they offer these services to others. Please note, any employees that terminate or retire and try to return to work as an independent contractor will have to follow that 4-month bona fide retirement. And that is as of July 1, 2018, that we require independent contractors to have a bona fide retirement as well. Our worker status determination form is found on our website. It goes over all areas in detail and is a complete questionnaire for you to fill out. Next, we're going to talk about termination. IPERS assumes that a member is continuously employed unless specific action or documentation shows a termination with you. Examples of what that documentation should include are a resignation letter, termination paperwork that is completed there at your office, an advertisement in a paper or on a website for the vacant position, or there is the verification page from the benefit application that they would get from our benefits department, and then no wages that would be reported for 4 quarters. So if there's ever a break in service for 4 quarters or more, that is considered a formal termination with IPERS. We ask that you report this to us when submitting the employee's last paycheck, as it is required for refunds and or to receive benefits. Next, we're going to move on to retired reemployed. Bona fide retirement periods and returning to work. If an individual is under age 70, they must complete a bona fide retirement of 4 months if they're in a permanent position, 1 month in a temporary position. There's a $30,000 earnings limit up to age 65, and anyone over age 70 can draw a benefit and continue to work for IPERS. Now, there are special rules for part-time elected officials. They can actually end employment at all IPERS covered positions and then write a letter to end coverage as the part-time elected official for the city in which they are the mayor or council for. And then they need to include that with their retirement application that they submit to IPERS. They will also need to provide a copy of that to the city. They can stay in their position. You would stop withholding for IPERS, and they can start drawing their IPERS benefits. If they are newly elected, they can take office, and there's no issue with that. As stated above, this includes former employees returning as independent contractors. So if you retire from IPERS and you decide you want to come back as an independent contractor, you cannot do so for 4 months. Just a heads up, there was a governor's proclamation beginning March 26th of 20 for licensed healthcare providers that were previously employed by a hospital, public health employees, and or special service members, including sheriffs and deputies. This currently ends October 18th of 2020.
And also, if anyone has any questions related to COVID, we have this resource out on our website. You just click on the picture, or there's even a section up here, information for members, information for employers. And with that, we will stop and take some of your questions. Do you anticipate seeing the $1,000 increase anytime in the near future? This is referring to the qualification for temporary employees. We have not heard anything at this time about that increasing.
And nor has there been any discussion, so not that we're aware of.
Okay, and we are working on the sound quality. I apologize if you are having trouble hearing it. If an employee qualifies in the 3rd quarter and then terminates, are they required to requalify if they start employment with us again? If they have a formal termination, then you would start the qualification again when they start with you. We have a library employee who has also helped with cleaning at the library. I have not created a new position for her in payroll for cleaning the library, and it is not many hours, but I wonder if I should do that and if these hours are IPERS eligible. She is an employee, not an independent contractor.
So with that, if the individual that you hire to clean the library is a permanent employee, it doesn't matter how many hours that she works. If she's going to permanently clean the library for you, she would potentially be IPERS covered. But if this is just a temporary position that you did as an ad, that she's going to come in as an as needed basis, then you could potentially treat her as a temporary employee. So you're going to want to take a look at that. If you consider her permanent, then you should make a new position for her in payroll. If she's not, then you would have her qualify by earning that $1,000 in each of 2 consecutive quarters to qualify as a temporary employee.
And then would this also include our local police chief?
I'm not quite sure what that question is referring to. If somebody could clarify that question, it says, would this also include our local police chief? The police chief, if they're a permanent employee, they should be covered for IPERS purposes unless you guys are in a city that's over that 8,000.
Okay, so if you have a follow-up question on that, just feel free to type it in. Referring to the governor's mandate till October 18th.
I don't have a copy of that. We'll take a look at the mandate. I don't know specifically in regards to your police chief if that follows him, if he can retire, doesn't have the bona fide retirement period for that. We'll have to follow up on that one. It does say special service, and it says including sheriffs and deputies, but I'm not sure about police chief. So we can check on that one, and we will get back to you on that. All right. So now we're going to start with section 4, IPERS covered wages and non-covered wages. It starts on page 27. Regular pay. What do we classify as regular pay? Salary, hourly, any overtime, comp time when you use it to replace a normal business day, and in a lump sum up to 240 hours in a calendar/fiscal year. Longevity. Longevity is covered for IPERS purposes no matter how it's paid. Normally it is put in, we're a little technical difficulties in regards to the sound. Hold on just a second. We're going to try this again. So regular pay is salary, hourly, overtime, comp time when used to replace a normal business day, and in a lump sum up to 240 hours in a calendar or fiscal year. Longevity pay is covered for IPERS purposes, whether it's put in your salary and or paid as a separate item. Back pay, sometimes what happens is raises aren't given timely, and so with that, you have to pay them later. So like if I'm entitled to a raise in January and you don't pay me out my raise until April, you're going to pay me in a lump sum in April, and then you're going to turn around and do a wage adjustment to move those monies back to through January, February, March to spread those out so they're evenly notated across my wages. Also vacation when it's paid to replace a normal business day, and sick when it's paid to replace a normal business day is covered. Section 125 plans are conditionally covered, and we will discuss that more here in just a few minutes. Things that are excluded from coverage. Lump sum payments such as vacation and sick. So if you're paying out a lump sum for vacation that's unused or paying it out at the end of the fiscal year, that would not be IPERS covered. Same thing for sick payouts, sick leave payouts. Any type of retirement incentive. So if you're paying somebody to leave or to retire early, that would not be covered. Severance, which is where you're paying somebody's contract out because you didn't agree or something happened and you had to pay them out in order to get them to leave. A legal settlement, which would be where it was a wrongful termination or discrimination suit. As long as they are not returning to IPERS covered employment, there's a settlement out there, but they're not returning to IPERS covered employment, then it wouldn't be, most likely that would not be covered. But we do ask you to send those legal settlements and or severances into IPERS to have it looked at just to clarify to make sure that that's not going to be covered. No bonuses or allowances are covered, no matter how they're paid. Workman's comp and disability is not covered for IPERS. It is normally paid through the insurance company. The only time that any portion of monies that would be covered for when somebody is on workman's comp would be as long as it's paid through the general assets of the employer. And so what I'm saying is if you allow them to supplement by using their vacation and sick to get 100% of their salary, the money that you pay out from the employer for vacation and sick would be covered for IPERS. Anything that gets paid through that insurance company would not be IPERS covered, no matter if they give it to the employee or if they provide it to you. If they're giving it to you, then you would have to deduct that from anything that you're paying out to the employee when reporting it to IPERS. Employer-paid life insurance premiums are excluded, and of course, cash options that are not uniformly available or cash in lieu of insurance. On the bottom of page 29 through 32, it goes into a whole lot more detail, and gives examples for different types of pay that is included and or excluded for IPERS coverage. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Section 125 plans, or what is commonly referred to as cafeteria plans. Employers who offer a covered cash option within their Section 125 plan need to submit that Section 125 plan annual certification form to IPERS and provide a copy of your certification plan. This was effective in January 1st of 2017. If you are curious as to whether or not your entity has an option that you need to certify, here are some questions that might make it clear. IPERS use these in making our determination. When we take a look at that for you, 1, do you have a Section 125 plan? Yes or no? If yes, is there a cash option that is uniformly available to all members within a specific group? If yes, is the cash option being covered for IPERS purposes? If yes, have you submitted the Section 125 plan annual certification form into IPERS for review? Please remember that cash benefits are only IPERS covered when the first 3 questions are answered yes, and the annual certification form is received. If the form is not received, then the cash option will not be considered IPERS covered wages. If you are not covering the cash option for IPERS, you do not need to send the form to us. So if you have any questions or you have a new plan where you're curious as to what may be covered, or you guys are in discussions as to what's going on, if you guys are looking at a new plan or new options available to your employees, you're always welcome to submit that to us in writing. You can submit that to us at employerrelations@ipers.org. Please take a look at the compensation and wage chart on page 35 and 36. That'll give you some ideas of what is covered.
Okay, it doesn't look like we have any new questions, but feel free, if you think of anything along this topic, just go ahead and type it in at any time.
We're going to move on to Section 5, which is on page 37. And we're going to start talking about contributions. IPERS sets contribution rates based on an actuarial evaluation, which of course is done every year in November. As we stated before, these rates cannot increase or decrease by more than 1% each year. Once the actuary determines what those rates will be, we will make sure that we notify you in writing, so through a bulletin, what those rates are going to be and when they are going to be effective. Our rates can be found at the bottom of the homepage at www.ipers.org. They're also subject to change each July 1st. So remember, IPERS wages are reported to us when paid, not when earned. The current contribution rates by membership groups is listed on the bottom of page 37. Regular class rate currently is 15.73%. It splits by 60-40, so 60% employer and 40% employee, 6.29%, and 9.44%, so employee and employer. Those are for occupation codes 01 for regular, 04 for legislature, 17 for part-time elected officials, and 19 for licensed healthcare professionals. Protection rates are at 16.02% for an employee-employer split of 6.41 and 9.61. The occupation codes for protection would be 06, which is police, 07, which is an airport firefighter, 13, which is firefighters, and 20, which is EMT or EMS providers. Our covered wage ceiling for 2020 is $285,000, and that, of course, goes up by $5,000 normally every year. It's located on page 38. Please note that, of course, IPERS contributions are to be pre-taxed for state and federal on the W-2s. IPERS is calculated on the gross wages. Then you subtract the employee's portion of the IPERS contributions. Then the remaining amount is subject to state and federal income tax. And that's information that you're going to want to use when doing the W-2s for your employees. Please note that there is a complete list of occupation codes, and that can be found on the bottom on page 41 and page 42 at the end of this section.
Okay, let's see if we have any questions. Could you please repeat the employer relations email address? Sure. It is employerrelations@ipers.org. Let me try typing it in as well. I don't know if people were able to see that or not. Okay, so moving on to Section 6 then, reporting wages.
All right, Section 6 starts on page 43. We're going to talk about reporting wages. Of course, with IPERS, you report gross wages, not net wages or the contribution amounts. IPERS wants wages reported when they are paid to the employee, not when they are earned. For example, an employee works March 15th through 30th, but the wages are paid on April 5th. These wages should be reported in the April wage report that is due on May 15th. Of course, you have two primary options for how you report the employee's wages to us each month. You can manually report the wages by going into the into the account summary and selecting the wage report, going into the details and typing in the wages for each individual, or you can import your file. On page 46 through 48, there are specific file format specifications if you are looking to set up a file so you can import instead of manually report those to us. So you can take a look at that and get that to your software provider. Once you report the wages to us, once you've released them, you can actually print out a wage and contribution report. And of course, we will go over that in detail and show you how to do that, how to find it and print it when we go through the IQ training. We ask, of course, with reporting wages, you report when employees terminate. It is very important to update IPERS with termination dates and last paid dates. As soon as they are paid, IPERS covered wages for the last time. Any re-employed employees must receive a new start date. So when you're re-adding them to our system, if you have not put a termination date and last check date in their previous employment line, it will not allow you to report wages. You must do that first before you can add a new start date and report wages to us. Of course, anytime you have a correction to IPERS, which we ask you to use the wage reporting adjustment form. Wage adjustments are done if you encounter an error after you submitted your wage report or you need to make any type of correction to a member's account. If you increase a wage, our members will receive a notification of contributions due. If for some reason they don't owe the money, they've already paid that through withholding through you as the employer, then you can just have them disregard that. Any employee that is hired permanently and works less than 6 months, we need those termination dates filled in on IQ in order to process any wages, less than 6 month wage adjustments that you submit to our office. If you do not have those termination dates put in there, you will receive an email from Luisita or Kara to have those dates updated or to provide those dates before they process that wage adjustment. Next, we're going to talk about payments. Payments to IPERS for the contributions are due by the 15th for the previous month's liability. You can submit contributions by EFT online or submitting a check along with employer remittance coupon. I believe to date we have quite a few of our employers paying online. It seems to be a faster and more convenient way to pay. Once you do go ahead and make that payment online and you schedule it, be sure to confirm and print when making that so you can get a receipt for your payment. We have people ask that. If you fail to hit the confirm and print at that time, you would have to do a screenshot later on to do that. And we can kind of talk about that when we're going through IQ. If for some reason you need to request an extension, you have to do so before and get that approved before the due date of your report and our contributions to avoid the late charges. Some of the documents in IQ, we'll go through the documents tab in detail, but the documents that are listed on IQ would be your employer monthly statement, and that gives you a breakdown of what was reported for the previous month. It's always generated to you on the 1st. We send you an email saying that your documents are available. Our annual statement is usually always sent out in August, and that has your fiscal time periods listed on that. So it would be July 1 of 2019 through June 30th of 2020. And if you ever do any wage adjustments, you will also receive, along with your employer monthly statement, a wage adjustment detail report that breaks down the employees, listing what adjustments were done and if any interest was charged. Of course, our employers are responsible for any interest on the contributions when you are doing a wage adjustment. Most of you are aware we do charge fees and interest for late payments and or late wage reports. If payments and wage reports are not received to IPERS in a timely manner, of course, by the 15th of the month for the previous month's liability, then you incur late fees and interest. There's a $20 late interest for late contributions and $20 plus 25 cents for each person on your report for the late wage report fee. Of course, if there's any uncontrolled reason why you cannot report your wages or payments in a timely manner, you can always contact us ahead of time and or use the request for waiver of late fees and interest charges. but make sure that it is an uncontrollable excuse or something that has happened, a fire, a flood. Of course, those things would be waived. And those go to our accounting department to be reviewed, and they make the decision as to whether or not they're going to waive them or not. If they waive them, of course, there normally is only a one-time waiver unless like extenuating circumstances. But if you've requested it previously within the last year, the last 2 years, you may be denied those and be required to pay those.
Okay. With that, we will take some questions. Can you please send me the new handbook? Yes, of course, we can mail that out to you. If anybody else wants an employer handbook, please feel free to shoot us an email at employerrelations@ipers.org. I will be paying an employee for the last time on September 30th. What should I do then? Well, you'd want to make sure they're included in your September wage report, and you can include the termination and last check date on your wage report. And we plan on going over that piece in IQ. Otherwise, you can go on after you submit the wages for them for the last time. You can go and get logged on to IQ. Under the View Update Member Information, you should be able to change their employment details, and it will allow you to add in the termination and last check date.
All right. For these last few items that we're going to go through, we're not going to pause in between them because they're very small sections. So we're going to talk about inactivity, which is section 7 on page 55. If there's any reason why you would have to dissolve or inactivate your entity, please let us know or complete the merge close form, which we will go over once we're going through IQ. If you need it, it's located out there on our website. And that's just for your information. A lot of times we don't see that, but within school districts, when they're reorganizing or for some reason an entity would dissolve or reorganize, then you'll want to report that to us so that we can assist you with getting termination dates and anything else that you might need on that. The next is the IPERS compliance reviews. And it's section 8 on page 57. So what happens during a compliance review? Well, we contact you, of course, because these reviews are required to be done every 2 to 3 years. We will start out by requesting the quarterly gross payroll wages for the year that we are reviewing. Once we get this information from you, of course, we would like that information sent to us securely by email, or we would like you to log into your account through IQ and send it through the message center. We will give you guys specific directions on how to do that, as this is a new feature of IQ. So you'll be able to upload them in the message center from here going forward. And we will show you how to do that here shortly following the employer handbook. Of course, after we have your gross payroll information, we will review all your employees regardless if they're IPERS covered or not, and then we will create a gross payroll comparison report that compares your gross wages to what you submitted to IPERS for the wage reports during that year. Next, we will schedule a time to meet with you, whether that be over the phone or in person. And of course, at this time during COVID, we're only conducting reviews over the phone. We will send you that gross payroll report beforehand so you have time to review any discrepancies. We will also request that you send us copies of your W-2s and any 1099s for that year. This information will be sent over to us securely either via email and or through the message center that we will show you shortly here how to use. There may be other items that we need from you as the review progresses, such as Section 125 plan documents, policies and procedures. We will go over a compliance workbook during our review. We will send that to you as well. This workbook allows us to follow along with our employer handbook and goes over all the items that we covered here today. The purpose of the review is to make sure that you, the reporting official, is aware of all of the IPERS rules and regulations that affect your agency. Our job is to make sure that you are informed and to work with you regarding anything we may discover today along the way. The last piece that we're going to talk about here in the employer handbook is the forms and glossary. The forms are located on page 9, in section 9 on page 59, and the glossary is listed on page 61 in section 10. There's a chart of all the forms which have been discussed throughout the session as well as the glossary. I would like to thank everyone for joining us here today. I hope we are able to answer all of your questions, but if not, please feel free to reach out to our team and we will be more than happy to assist you. Thank you, everyone.